Among the very good reasons not to join the EU again, by hook or by crook, is also the fact that the EU is in a terrible state, as we saw a lot of disunity in the early months of the Ukraine war, but also the abject failures of two of the major governments. We've seen the collapse of Macron's government. He is on his fourth prime minister this year in France, with the collapse of the French economy just at any moment now. And also the same for Germany, their industrial base collapsing, their economy collapsing, and now their government collapsing. Elections very soon after a vote of no confidence in the Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Let's talk about this with Ralph Schoellhammer. He's a political theorist and a professor at Webster University in Vienna. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Thanks so much for joining us. So listen, for those of us who don't spend our days following German politics in great detail, what's happened to this so-called traffic light coalition?
Well, so the German government collapsed, but it was quite interesting. You mentioned it in your introduction, that more or less from France to Germany, significant parts of Europe have become ungovernable. And the reason for this, I believe, is we experienced what I call the Barack Obamization of continental European politics, which is that it's only the voters who can disappoint the politicians, but never the other way around. Although I would say you see this partially in Britain as well. And it's also a little bit, I have to admit, the fault of the voters, because you have like 20-25% who are willing to give new political movements a chance. But a good 70%, for whatever reason, it seems that they have fear of their own courage when it comes to actually, going to the voting booth. And then they say, let's try it with the old guys who drove the car into the ditch. Let's give them another chance. And that's really the problem. That's the difference, as Mr. Ian Duncan said, or Sir Ian Duncan said before, but I think that's the difference.
But basically, that is different. With our first past the post system here, very different voting sort of power that you can have as an individual voter from the proportional representation you have in elections in France and Germany, say.
I think that's true. But on the other hand, the people know what's at stake.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. But at the end of the day, everybody knows the rules of the game. And as we saw in the United States, remember, during Barack Obama, we were told that, there will never be a Republican president again in the United States, because the way the system, the electoral college, everything is set up, it benefits the left, it benefits
and
the
demographics,
party, it benefits Democrats. But then people said, you know what, this is not working for us, and they switched their allegiance. I think that in Europe, not enough people are willing to do it. By the way, that's unfortunately also true in the UK. I'm not saying who is the answer, because I have my issues with all parties.
Yeah. But the willingness to say we'll try something new. But specifically going on what's happened in Germany.
Yes.
You've had this coalition, this traffic light coalition.
Well, the German elections would have taken place in 2023 anyways. They would have been in the fall, and now they're in February, because the smallest partner of the coalition government, the Liberal Party, the so-called Free Democrats, every poll shows that they will not pass the 5% threshold, so they will not make it into parliament at all.
Right.
So they started to panic, and they found the backbone when it became ever more clear that they probably will not be represented after the next election. So there's a lot of attempted gamesmanship going on. But the most interesting part was yesterday, after there was the vote of no confidence for Chancellor Scholz. He gave a speech basically saying, I don't understand what's going on. We did such an exceptional job. We were stabbed in the back after doing the best for the German people.
So just an abject, complete lack of understanding of what's happened. But this is the fascinating thing. Again, we've seen in Germany, again, with European elections. We saw in France, we've seen in other countries, Austria, your native Austria as well, where we are just seeing more and more parties on the right, often deplored as the far right. Now, some of these parties have some pretty questionable views, in my view. An awful lot of them are simply representing majority opinion on issues, things like immigration, but also net zero. But all of this ties into not just cultural values, but also, crucially, the economy. Now, Germany for years has been the economic powerhouse of Europe. But they have hugely high energy costs. They were very reliant for so many years on Russian gas. That got switched off, and then it's all gone very badly wrong since. They've also totally fully engaged on the net zero drive, and their economy, once a powerhouse, now a basket case. That has implications for the whole of Europe, doesn't it?
No, I think you're right. And just if you allow me a little comparison, what you say is absolutely correct. But look at it from this perspective. Imagine you need life-saving surgery, but the only surgeon who can do the procedure, also happens to cheat on his wife. So you might say, my God, that's a horrible human being, but he's the only one who knows how to save my life. And that's a little bit the situation I believe we see in continental Europe with these so-called hard right, far right, whatever parties you want to call them. I think in all the issues that matter, in order to ensure the survivability of the nations of Europe, they are right. Yes, they say occasional things that I disagree with. Yes, they have the occasional disgusting or unsavory party member. But on all the major issues, they tend to be correct. So for me, they are like this kind of surgeon who might be, morally abhorrent, but he's the only one who knows how to hold the scalpel and save the patient. And Europe is a patient at the moment that needs saving.
And people are holding their noses and doing that. So the next elections could be early in the new year. Who do you think's going to end up being Chancellor of Germany?
Well, they already kind of said it. I mean, the leader of the CDU, the conservative Friedrich Merz, will most likely be chancellor. But he already said he's only going to enter into a coalition with either the Greens or the Social Democrats. So this is going to be a continent.
So this is effectively, again, it's like Conservatives going to coalition with the Labour Party.
Precisely. We had this conversation almost 2 years ago, Julia, when we said the problem is, and that's true with net zero, but also with general politics, it's like a car driving towards a cliff.
Yeah.
And the people say, turn the car around. But what's happening in Germany and other parts is, it's a, you know what? We take the foot off the gas just ever so slightly, but the direction is still the one that's going to lead you over the cliff, and that's the big issue. Absolutely.
Ralph Schoellhammer, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Tom Slater, I mean, it's amazing, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, very wisely, Keir Starmer totally obsessed with us getting back in with Europe. That's where our future lies economically and politically, when in both grounds, the powerhouses of Europe are completely and utterly failing. And on the same grounds, I think that this government's going to fail on immigration and net zero, both of which are driving an end to our nation's culture, cohesiveness, but also our economy.
And Olaf Scholz is a deeply unpopular, deeply uncharismatic centre-left leader who has just been brought down by a mix of his own Green and his Green zealotry and a rested population upset about immigration. If that sounds familiar, Keir Starmer should probably
very familiar, doesn't it? But no one seems to be willing to learn the lessons. I mean, Macron's a completely different character. Because it's just all Macron, ego, isn't it? But it is extraordinary. And again, at a time when we're facing these threats from Russia, threats from China, we've got instability to the extent in America, waiting for Donald Trump to take office. We need to have some coherence and some people we can deal with. And no one knows who's in charge. And that is quite a big issue. And you don't have the gravitas. I mean, God, Angela Merkel made a lot of mistakes, but at least, you knew she was in charge. It's absolutely fascinating. And again, this stuff, you think it doesn't matter? It impacts us because it impacts our economy. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. Back after an update on the news. Plenty more to come. This is Talk.